Welcome, everybody. It is December 24th, 2023, Christmas Eve to much of the world, though why that is still remains a mystery, since even if he existed, he definitely wasn't born around this time. And we are The Sunday Show, hosted by Jimmy Snow and Matt Dillahunty, though admittedly, that might be news to some people, since I don't think I've been here in over a month. So welcome, new people. I'm often here. I know. That's definitely what I was doing, was slacking.
Slacky McSlackerton.
That's right. Absolutely. And welcome to a special Christmas Eve episode leading up to a very special Christmas event tomorrow, starting at 4 o'clock. Myself and 6 of the other creators. Not everybody from the line will be here, but you will see the best ones. No, I'm just kidding. Shannon's missing, so she's one of the best ones, will definitely not be here. But myself, Matt, Forrest, Dr. Ben, Aron, Dave, and Arden will all be here tomorrow at 4 o'clock for a special Christmas event where we're just going to have fun, hang out. We'll take calls and stuff as we usually do. And this year, we're doing something a little bit different and fun and exciting. We're calling it our Holiday Mug Brawl. We are all here representing mugs. And by mugs, I mean literal drinking mugs that unfortunately wasn't able to get to us in time, but we'll give you a little preview of this. Everybody who's going to be on the show tomorrow has a mug, and whoever sells the most of their mug, that design will go on a shirt or a hoodie or something that in February all of the hosts will have to wear on their episodes.
It'll be me.
This is mine. Forrest is positive he's going to win, but I've only got the 2 of ours up here. So you've got your I Jimmy'd myself on Xmas and your gay ho-ho homie. These are the mugs.
That was on the last show, somebody super chatted to ask me to say your gay ho-ho homie in my best Santa thing. And I was like, that is so funny, but I can't tell you why, because Arden came over like 2 days before that to say, hey, we need you to come up with a mug for you. And I was like, a mug? And yeah, oh yeah, it's Christmas, we're doing this, and you need a Christmas thing. And I was like, how about your gay ho-ho homie?
That's right.
And so, yes, it went on the cup. And you will all buy it, and I will win.
I'm going to show you, I'm going to pull up, mostly also as an opportunity to complain, because I did the design for several of them. Arden did the design for several of them. But the one that I did for Forrest took more time than the other 6 combined, because this guy had notes every step of the way. And by the way, I would argue that the final iteration isn't actually that far different from the iteration that I initially gave him, because at one point he wanted to go, I kind of want to put less elements, and then at some point went with, I actually want to put a bunch of elements back now. So this is the Forest mug, Never Have a Bad Day, featuring some little things. And it's funny because it is the Forest mug, but there's my handwriting all over it. I'm going to zoom in on this thing here and show you some more. So you've got Drake's equation there on the side, E equals MC squared, all these molecules, all these things. These are all drawn by me. But that is the Forest mug, and this is the one that he is. He said
caffeine.
There is no caffeine molecule. One of those is how do you pronounce it? Acetic acid, and the other one I think is thiamine. There was a caffeine molecule written across the top, just the chemical written out, but he didn't like it, so he kept trying new things, and eventually he liked the progression of evolution.
I'm confused by something, Jimmy. I think you've been cheating.
Uh-huh.
Because you're just announcing this for the first time ever, and there's people in chat saying they already ordered those, which means it seems like you might be poisoning the well a little on the results.
It's true. Actually, so the answer to that is I gave Patreon a heads up yesterday. Yes. Gave them the early insight. Speaking of, by the way, people, if you've been considering getting on Patreon, starting in the new year, we're going to be adding tons of content to Patreon. We're probably aiming for at least one additional piece of content per week, sort of different, obviously not a call-in show. The main product of the line, or whatever you want to call it, the main thing we do here, that's still going to be free and available to YouTube. But we are going to be making Patreon a much more happening place to be. And that's going to be a fun and exciting time. So all of that's the stuff you need to know. There's a link in the description if you want to get one of your mugs. They're all priced. The 11 ounces are $16.66, 1666, and the 15-ounce ones are $24.20, $24.20. And I think if you order before the day's over, we have like a War on Xmas coupon code we've been running since we launched the wine glasses. And I think that's still good for another day also. So you get 10% off, but that's all.
That's what I've been telling people. War on Xmas gets you through Christmas Day for 10% off. But if you're a patron at patreon.com/call the line, you can get a 25% off discount code. I see Paula Gia in chat.
Off the wine glasses. The 10%, there's no additional on the mugs, because the mugs are not marked up very much. We would lose money giving 25% off is basically the point.
Yeah, that's true. And I definitely don't want us to lose money. I had an incredibly difficult night last night, and yet I feel pretty okay now. I pounded a full throttle energy drink like the second I woke up at 11. Normally I'm up about 7:30, but I have a sty forming on my right eye. So any of you are like, Matt's eye looks weird. That's why. Yeah. And it popped up out of nowhere and went from I feel fine to, oh my God, does my eye hurt? And I literally sat in my chair in the living room until 6 o'clock this morning, unable to fully go to sleep. But then I crawled in bed exhausted, got 5 hours of sleep, and I'm ready to do a show and take on the world. Bring it on. I got your paradoxes. By the way, I came up with a novel argument against arguments for the existence of God, which I'm still thinking about. I can't publish it yet.
All right.
But I think I have done a twist on something that could be a big deal.
Thank you to the people complimenting my hat. I will tell you it is warming my head, which is an unusual sensation for me, so I doubt it's going to make it the whole show. It's giving me sensory annoyance. But I'm going to go ahead and throw in the live chat a poll asking, do you believe in the Christmas story, in quotes? And if you're going to answer some version of yes to that, we'd also love to hear you call in and tell us what version of the Christmas story you believe is true. Obviously, this is not for, I'm aware there's a lot of pedantic atheists who are going to go now like, how can I make the answer yes when it's really no? But what if I I believe, we're talking about people who believe in magic babies, people. It's, yeah. I mean, I guess if you want to say you believe historically the Christmas story also happened in some way but I wouldn't have that much interesting to say about it. I'd literally say, I don't see the evidence for that.
I'm going to caution people. I'm not going to get around to finishing what I was working on, but there's a bunch of atheists who are like, Christmas is just, they stole a bunch of pagan rituals and blah, blah, blah. And it's all pagan this, and it's trees and this, and it's, anti-biblical and stuff like that. And then you've got people out there like Michael Jones, Inspiring Philosophy, who's like, there's absolutely no evidence that anything about Christmas comes from any pagan tradition. And I think that both camps are ridiculous in the kind of hyperbole that they're going for. I think it's a mistake to say that Christmas is merely, like pagan things that got turned into Christianity. Hey, I need to take down my black non-believers thing. I was still advertising them from the fundraiser yesterday.
They're good people.
So just exercise a little bit of caution. I did not get around to finishing the video before Christmas, and I'm not going to because I have an eye and it looks bad.
Yeah.
But try not to. It's one thing to say, hey, look, if Christmas is a celebration that began and is tied to possibly an extant Jesus, then at a minimum, for the first part of what would have been Christmas, the actual any time of celebrating the birth of Jesus, it wasn't around December 25th. And because it originated in the Middle East, it definitely didn't involve fir trees being decorated and all. But don't just do the, oh, it's pagan-y thing. There are certainly pagan aspects. And the easiest way, this is what was going to be in the video, is that if you look at it from a purely normative point of view, throughout history, there's this notion of syncretism, where religions merge and ideas merge, and it has to do with a lot of things, where cultures come into contact with each other, and you got your chocolate in my peanut butter, you got your peanut butter on my chocolate type thing. And so there are families that intermarry, and there are traditions that come with those different families, and they blend and merge. It's not like somebody had to be like, ooh, let's steal the pagan stuff, or let's secretly make Christmas pagan. That's ridiculous. But to say that there aren't aspects of Christmas that are commonly celebrated that aren't also tied to pagan origins and pagan festivals and Yule and all that stuff is just silly. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's not like God's going to show up and correct any of this shit. It's just people arguing with people. If you're the type of person who thinks that you understand what God knows and wants and what he has to say, pick up the phone, call in, 720-619-2288. There's also a web link below in the description where you can call in and defend what it is you believe and why. Are you celebrating Christmas right now from an entirely religious perspective? I'd be interested to hear the how and why. And also, while I'm not doing anything Christmassy this year, we're definitely doing a Christmas show thing tomorrow, but I like Christmas. I think that there are aspects of Christmas that, if they didn't already exist, would have need to have been invented. I think there's the extra little completely manufactured bullshit boost to economies, I think, is generally a good thing. I could be completely wrong. It may end up having the snapping rubber band type effect and end up being worse in the long run. But yeah, if you're sitting there and if you're an atheist surrounded by family members who have said incredibly bizarre things over the holidays, feel free to give us a call tomorrow and let us know what's going on.
So I have questions because I want to make sure that I don't believe things that are wrong about Christmas.
Oh boy.
So the thing that I was most aware of, that probably is the thing I hear that repeated the most, was that, I don't remember when it would have been, a couple centuries after Jesus' birth. I remember the Pope was Julius, basically designates December 25th as Jesus' birthday or birthday celebration, and that a lot of people believe that the motivation for that was, at that time, they were trying to absorb and convert pagans, and that it was specifically to make it easier to absorb the festival of Saturnalia, which was around December 25th. And that was the,
I'm not convinced that the evidence is strong enough to say that this was an intentional thing to potentially absorb Saturnalia. There are so many different things that I've heard from different things. One of the reasons is that it's 9 months from Easter, even though that has nothing to do, like when you were born and when you were supposedly killed or resurrected, right? But it could be symbolic of one rebirth and another rebirth. And the thing is, they can make up whatever they want because we don't have really good records. So even if it was an attempt to, stealing Saturnalia and Sol Invictus and everything like that, I don't know how you demonstrate it apart from making potentially a cumulative case, although we'll have to go into that another time. I'm just saying, prepare for people to be telling you and to look at you as if you have two heads and don't understand the basics of history if you're just like, oh, Christmas was just a pagan festival that Christians adopted. It's much more complicated than that. And when there are Christians that are like, oh, that none of that's true, none of that's true, those are exactly the same as the oversimplifications of, we have mountains of evidence for this. No, you don't. You're engaged. Oh, I don't even want to say that. I'm going to give away my other video.
I think the point I would make too is why would it matter if it was true or close to true? Like if they did decide as a method of, do you think that would shake a Christian's faith who would agree that paganism is satanic or like evil? And that if anything, I think most Christians would be like, oh, solid favor the Pope did there to force Christianity down their throats. Like what's the benefit of that? I guess I do understand if there are cultures of people who want recognition of like that you're appropriating the culture or something. But I mean, honestly, it's of the things that
probably
I care
a good
about.
chunk of it. That's probably a good chunk of it. My take on it, back when I was a Christian, was if there were elements of Christmas or any other holiday, I mean, because undeniable, well, all right, I say it's undeniable, and now Michael or somebody will put up a video being like, oh, no, you're wrong. Easter, literally named after Esther, paganish, fertility festival. But does that mean that the Easter tradition in Christmas is stolen from pagan stuff? No, the aspects that are Christian aren't stolen. And the things that are tied to the pagan festival aren't Christian. There's nothing about bunnies and chocolate eggs and, fertility and all that. That stuff gets rolled into it in this syncretic fashion that we rolled in other things as well. It's the attempt at oversimplifying that it's just a problem.
It's now I will say it's funny because there's that one. I know we got to get to the show here in a bit. I want to remind people too. I hope that we're going to have some theists call today. Today is a huge theist holiday, so this may be the hardest day of the year to get theists to call in. I don't know. I don't know if we'll have. We do have some people waiting. I don't think any are theists though. We're still there's some being screened, but Anyway, so we will get to calls here in a moment. It is funny. There's that one person who I'm trying to be kinder, and I legitimately like in the last month. This last month was a physical health and mental health break for me because I am not doing well in either regard recently. In fact, I'm still figuring out how the Sometime show is going to come back because my transition from I was avoiding the news to now I'm diving into it because I'm trying to cover it and talk about it. That put me down like a whole ass spiral. The world is awful, and I am in I'm in like a daily existential crisis about it. But anyway, that's, I don't know why I'm bringing that up. Anyway, I'm trying to be kinder, but I'm not going to be kind to there's that one idiot who calls into the shows with his 7-day calendar, 31 or 365. The proof that God is real is that we use a calendar that he thinks is Christian. And I don't know, has anybody brought up to that fucking, I use the word idiot. I'll just stick to idiot. Has anyone brought up with that idiot, the names of the days of the week? Because I feel that would be proof of paganism in his model. Anyway, as we're talking about things that have some pagan roots.
Yeah, maybe we'll get that person to call in.
Oh, I think they're banned.
Well, you know what? We could have a Christmas miracle where we unban. Oh no. I was gonna be. We can unban everybody. Don't ever do that.
Yeah, we pretty much only ban anymore people who resort to slurs. I mean, that's pretty much the entire ban list anymore. But yeah. Anyway, we can get a start on things. This one actually kind of interests me. Let's talk to Landon in Tennessee because I'm actually mostly lined up with Matt on this. Landon in Tennessee, you're on the line with Jimmy and Matt. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we hear you fine. Landon, it says you have a question about Matt's label of the Satanic Temple as dumb, confusing, and problematic.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was listening to him and Shannon talk to. I think it was a nurse about being kind of outed online from his grandma, and I heard Matt make that statement, and I was kind of confused by it, and just wanted to hear his elaboration, I guess, on why he thought that.
Okay, because for everybody who's not in the Satanic Temple and not clued in to the fact that these Satanists don't actually believe in Satan, they think that's the case.
I get the confusing part, but I was not sure why you thought it was dumb and problematic, especially given what the Satanic Temple is trying to do politically. It seems that it's very valuable, that it's something that people don't find very comfortable and are, kind of really put off against.
Wow, it's so weird. So I've specifically said repeatedly that the Satanic Temple may be the greatest force currently in existence when it comes to dealing with issues of church-state separation. So you're like, why do you think it's not? I think the name and the label is beyond stupid because it's confusing to people. You constantly have to explain what it means and what it doesn't mean. And to adopt this thing to act as a terrorizing, aspect to ignorant people, cool. It's very effective at providing examples of how to better implement church-state separation and religious freedom. If you understand the confusion, I don't understand what you're objecting to, because I'm objecting to the confusion. It's like, I don't have to explain that secular humanists don't believe in Satan nearly as often as I would if I was a Satanist.
I thought you might be getting at more than just it being confusing because you called it dumb and problematic. But if all you meant by those words are just reiterating that it confuses people, I would agree with that. But I think for a lot of people, it's the mythology around it is very valuable to getting out of the Christian authority, and it's very comforting to a lot of people. So I don't know that I would call it dumb.
What mythology?
Like flipping the character of Lucifer kind of around, and there's books written about it. I guess Revolt of the Angels is one of my favorite books, and it kind of depicts Lucifer as a character that's standing up to the arbitrary authority of
That's not mythology.
Yahweh.
That's fan fiction. Satanists are cosplaying.
But also, how is that beneficial if you don't also believe that?
It's not like Satanism. It's not like Satanism requires you to be adhering to even a fictional model of Satan. You don't need a character with a mythology for that. You have tenets.
Yeah, Landon.
I agree with tenets as well.
If someone came to me and said that the alternative mythology to Satan is beneficial, and it wasn't fan fiction, I would assume that they are saying, in the course of having discussions with, say, Christians, Mormons have some weird Satan beliefs that are honestly way cooler than mainstream Christianity, but don't tell them I said that. But I would assume that it would mean like, hey, by the way, this thing that you believe about Satan, this comes up with hell all the time. A lot of people's concept of hell in the Bible isn't actually in the Bible. It's a lot of additions and things that have come from other places. But there isn't like a designated scholars agree that Satan was actually this, and this alternative mythology was taken over by, where you would challenge anybody's belief with it. So it's potential to be beneficial. I think by beneficial, you just mean it's kind of fun.
Hello?
Is that fair, Landon?
Sorry, I let my phone cut off for a second. Sorry. No, I think that's perfectly fair. I was just saying these stories are really meaningful to a lot of people. I think mythology was probably the wrong word to put to that, because it is, like Matt said, just very recent that people have kind of done these kind of things.
What stories? So maybe I'm just confused. What stories exist within Satanism that are incredibly meaningful to people? Because my view of Satanists, and this is after having debated a bunch of them, or debated some of them, and even engaging and pointing out where, Lucian's been a dipshit. It's like someone coming to me and saying, hey, we want to create a new version of secular humanism, and we're going to change like two things, and we're going to market ourselves as the poopy shitheads. How you think that's going to go over?
I'm a child. That made me laugh.
I don't know a whole lot about secular humanism, but you could be right about that.
Clearly not. Anybody who's advocating for Satanism as something profound. Anyway, what is it about? What stories within Satanism are incredibly meaningful to people, and why? Because that's never true for me.
I think that people can. I don't know how to exactly put it, but certain values can be represented in different stories. The same values can. And for people that grew up in a very fundamentalist Christian household that are,
like me,
just told their whole, like you and like me as well, they're just told their whole life, you're doing this, that's wrong, this, that's wrong, this, that's wrong, because Yahweh says so. It was, reading the books where God was the bad person or Yahweh was the bad person and Lucifer was the person trying to stand up for his freedom and be able to do what he wanted to do, which is, I think that's relates maybe with a lot of young people growing up in that kind of situation, was a very empowering thought, and I connected with it.
So just basically the benefit any story can have to a person, not specific that it's not necessarily meaningful that it's Satan versus Frodo.
No, I related with this particular story, but no, I think the power of stories is, it's what humans connect with stories, and certain humans connect with certain stories. And I think this story is one that certain people connect with.
I'll try and save it for you, Landon. I think then if there's a benefit to it, the benefit is that if you are raised religious, there's a lot of things that you teach yourself to not even think. And that you're not allowed to think, and you shouldn't be reading certain types of things. And if things are calling into, and it's probably a very freeing experience to read a story about God as the bad guy and Satan as the good guy, and know that you're not going to hell for reading it, and know that it's fine. That's probably if we're going to call something beneficial. But I don't think the story itself. It's more of just what the story for the people who attach to it can maybe do for them. But yeah, I'm similar. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. There's the blasphemous component was also a little bit, I guess, nice to embrace that. Everybody around me, this is just the ultimate evil thing that's going to send you to hell, and realizing how scared they are of certain things like that was also, kind of nice to realize.
I like a lot of the stories that end up making it to the news from Satanists, but I'm similarly, I suppose, annoyed at the number of times I have to explain Satanism to people when it's not even a thing that I adhere to. I will say I do enjoy when the meme rotates. I'm trying to remember. I know Godless Mom was the one who had the the final punchline, but somebody was talking about Satanism, worshiping Satan, and somebody replies, that's not what Satanists do. Satanists don't believe in a literal Satan. And then someone asks, well, then what do you call the people who believe in a literal Satan? And Godless Mom responded with Christians. And I like that. That's a good meme that goes around.
This call was just prompted because they recently were in Memphis.
Yeah, and that guy broke their Baphomet and has become a rich person overnight for doing so. So it's kind of like there are things that backfire. I don't know that we call that one a victory since they've raised, I think, millions of dollars for him in his defense, that guy. And now he's being held up by a toilet paper USA hero. I don't know that we call that one a win, but hopefully the courts at least treat it with fairness and do say, no, you committed a crime. That's actually a crime.
I hope so. But I took more time than I thought this call was going to take, so I really appreciate you guys taking it.
Cool.
I don't get it. So for people who were raised religious, evidently the fictional satanic narrative, which isn't real and isn't a required element of being a Satanist, that portrays Lucifer as the good guy or rebellious, is somehow transformative for people who also haven't bothered to look into principles of secular humanism or philosophy. Because all we're talking about is it okay to question? Is it okay to rebel? And I guess I could see how Satanism's stories might do that, but that's how the Jedi religion got started. That's how people try to put themselves into Harry Potter sorting hat houses. I'm the weird one, but not only do I not need a story never needed a story like that to figure out that it was okay to rebel, but even to whatever extent I might have needed the concepts, I don't need to tie them to Satan. It's like I'm already accused of working for Satan, being Satan, and participating in satanic stuff all the time. Why on earth would I voluntarily say, oh yeah, I'm a Satanist? It doesn't add anything to it. It's not robust. It is not, I don't know. I just don't get it. I appreciate, I have tons of friends who are Satanists, Aron's a Satanist. But to me, it's like they're cosplaying.
Yeah. I can't do it either.
I can't do that.
Yeah. I feel you could, if that was the basis for beneficial, kind of like we already talked about, I could create a fake religion surrounding like when you finally start looking at porn and don't feel guilty for that. Because you were conditioned with that's evil, and now you feel differently. And as I say it out loud, I might. Anyway, Landon, thanks for your call.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Have a great Christmas.
See ya.
Thanks, you too. Or don't.
Yeah, it's up to you. 720-619-2288. We are especially interested in speaking to some theists about their beliefs, especially surrounding Christmas today. Also to Andrew had called in about being blocked in chat. Send me an email, contact@qnaline.com, and we'll see. But many of the times people are wondering why they're blocked in chat. They don't actually seem to be blocked in a chat from our end. So, you may also be shadow banned by YouTube. I don't know. But
I can say that, without going into great details, I am banned in a chat channel, not because they banned me, but because they banned my name and I appear under my name. So it could be that whatever username that person is participating as has something in it that is banned.
Yeah, which we don't have a ton of banned words except for the obvious one. So you'd have to go and see if like you accidentally have a slur in your name or something when you put all the words together. But anyway, we'll talk to Brandon, a theist in Texas. That's where we are. Brandon in Texas, you're on the line with Jimmy and Matt. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Delightful.
Awesome. So I just had a quick question. I need some advice because I've been a Christian for about 7 years now. And so I was just calling into the show to see if you guys could give me some advice on a few things.
Okay. And it looks like you told our call screener that you are still at least still a theist, right?
Yes, I would say I still embrace theism, but I'm in the middle of deconverting right now after watching a couple of your videos and having conversations with other people.
Okay. So what's the, go ahead and ask your question, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. So I wanted to know, what do you think about cases where certain Christians maybe have approached you, or you've seen it happen before, where they go up to you and tell you, hey, God told me this about your life, and everything they're telling you is spot on.
That's
I've had
never
moments
happened.
like that happen to me, and for some reason, that's the only thing that's kind of keeping me attached to this belief, because it just doesn't make sense to me how they would know so much information about my life. I mean, they never met me. They never had a conversation with me before.
That's never happened to me.
Yeah, nor to me. But every time there are plenty of stories of people thinking that not just for Christianity, which you come from, but there are certain types of fortune tellers, which is realistically what we're talking about. or psychics or whatever in every religion, as well as these sort of non-religious ones they just claim to be psychic, but not necessarily attached to a specific religion. And every time there has actually been a mechanism to investigate that, not just somebody telling the story. I had a psychic told me about the candles in my pantry and how many were melted and which was one that someone had brought to me once upon a time. Anytime that you actually have the ability to investigate, they have fallen apart. And so if you want to know what my suspicions are about what happened, potentially we can share that, but I think I'd need to know more information about what you're saying happened.
Yeah. Like what are people telling you that they couldn't have known?
Yeah. So one thing that somebody had approached me about was when, as a kid, I was abused by my grandparents, physically abused, and somebody had approached me and told me, like, hey, God told me that you were abused by your grandparents and you came from a lot of trauma growing up as a kid, and he wanted me to tell you that he loves you. And he sees the pain
Here's a question.
You went through.
Here's a question.
Yes.
Why would a God who sees that you are being abused by grandparents never do anything at all to intervene or try to correct it, and then instead of comforting you directly, sends someone else to say he knows what happened and he loves you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the issue that I have right now, which is why I've been doubting my faith, is because I haven't heard from God directly. I've heard from other people, or I guess you can say messengers, but I've never heard from God directly. He's never opened up the heavens or anything like that. So.
Yeah, I have a different question for you, actually. So that man, do you know the person's name? Do we have a name for him?
I do know his name. Yes.
What was his name? Just first name.
His name's Jonathan Smith.
Well, you don't have to give all of that, but that also sounds like a fake name. But anyway, how many more people have you seen him do that to? How did you, after he gave you that, have you followed him around, made him a part of your life? How many more people has he gone up and given, these somewhat vague, frankly, predictions to that you've witnessed?
Well, he was my young adults pastor for about a good 6 years. And so I was under him for that period of time. And I've seen him do it.
How far into those 6 years did he do this?
I would say probably, if I could put it into a number, I would say like 10 times to different people throughout the time.
No. Wait, how far into the 6 years of him being your pastor did he give you your prediction or your psychic reading or whatever you want to call it?
I would say the first month that he met me.
But it wasn't the first moment he met you, right?
Well, when he first met me, he did have a certain word for me. But the next, I would say, like a couple of weeks after we had more conversations and connected with each other, he gave me some more information about my life. So the first moment he met me, he did have some sort of like.
Okay, give me the first moment then, because already your thing of he had no way of knowing has already fallen apart to me, because this is exactly how Mormons do it. When you go and you visit a Mormon church and you participate in the community, the bishop loves to gather information about you from the other people in the community, and then when it's you one-on-one, act like he has some spiritual revelations. I know, because my dad used to do that shit, and then I got to see it recognized in other happen in other places. So I'm already the answer to how this could have happened. The how it could have, I'm not even saying that is how it happened, but there's already a natural explanation that's 1 billion times more likely than the universe turned to magic so that he could reveal it to you. So what was you said the first moment he met you, the first time he's exposed to you, presumably. Nobody's talked to him about you. He doesn't know anybody from the community, I hope. But tell me about the first words he had for you that he knew about you when he meets you for the very first time.
Yeah. So he had approached me at church and he told me about my dad. I didn't have a father growing up. And he came up to me and told me that he saw that the Lord revealed to him that I didn't have a father figure, and that he was wanting to be he felt like God encouraged him to come up to me and try to connect with me as a father, because he knew I didn't have a father at the time.
Yeah. So super. again, there are elements to this that indicate that you are both a part of a community before this happened. So there's one natural explanation. Somebody's actually already told him, he's sitting in some sort of meeting with other religious leaders. Hey, we're aware of this person. They have this stuff and this stuff and this stuff. As far as like, even if that isn't the answer, there are other natural answers. There are cues and things about people that you can find out about a person's life. And this is what cold readers often use when they start to get into more warm reading and hot reading, where you can make those jumps and those assertions and most often be right as you're interacting with somebody about whether or not they had a positive male role model or father figure or what, like this, as far as things that my two answers to you are, one, my two options that I would say you should consider as much more likely is that one, he is a cold reader who then got into warm reading, which if you don't know about that, I guess read up on it, watch Darren Brown's on stuff, but got into more warm reading. Or two, he's a liar. Like these are such simple, to me, I don't understand this. I'm sorry, it's been a long time since I've deconstructed, but I don't understand these being the big barriers when somebody's deconstructing and going, holy crap, none of this stuff makes sense. And I'm observing my belief. And if my belief isn't true, I'm recognizing that religious people have clearly known that they were lying when they were making up at least elements of it. That I've been part of one of the biggest human scams there is. But I'm having a hard time letting go of that one of the people who participates in perpetuating that scam might have lied to me.
Yeah. It's deep. Okay.
If he walked up to you and told you your social security number, I'd be more impressed, but I still wouldn't think he was from heaven or that God was talking to him.
Yeah.
But he'd be one of the best street magicians I'd ever seen, for sure.
I'm wondering,
For sure.
Brandon, how old were you when you first went to this church, and what drew you to this church?
Yeah, so I was 18 years old at the time. I just graduated from high school. And what drew me to the church was during this time, I was in a toxic relationship, and I had a little religious upbringing as a child. And during that time, I had prayed and asked God, like, hey, I need some help. I need your direction. And my aunt had invited me to church. And so I ended up going, and that's how I met the people there. But my aunt was also new to the community, so she didn't have any connections with people there.
So there's no way your aunt or anybody else who knew you could have told this youth pastor, hey, Brandon's going to be joining us at church this week. He's had a bit of a rough go on occasion. That's not possible?
It's a possibility, but I don't necessarily think it happened because my aunt was new at the time. She was fairly new to the church. I think she was like a week in, and she wasn't really like connecting with other people from the congregation. At least from my. Say that again?
Well, people presume that if they go someplace, nobody can know anything about them, and yet they're still in their hometown. They're still in the area. There's people they went to high school with. There's people they went to junior high school with. There's people they run into at the grocery store. There's people they played softball with. There's people they played, all of these interactions. And so here you've got someone who's potentially suffered abuse at the hands of elders and who, was missing a father. The notion that elements of your story could not possibly have made it to a pastor is unbelievably naive. Yeah. I have a number of friends who have been pastors at different churches, pastors and youth pastors. And you know what the church is really, really, really good at? Gossiping. Yeah. It doesn't take much to say, they don't look at it as gossiping. It's, hey, Brother Steve, I need to tell you, this family down the street from me has been having a really tough time, and we need to add them to our prayer circle. And here's what we need to pray about specifically, because there's a little boy in this house that's had to go through this blah, 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 blah. And they don't look at it as gossiping, and they don't look at it as if they've shared anything, sensitive. And they'll feel like God has laid it upon their heart. God has given me this information. No, there's zero evidence that God's given you any information. And if God had a message for me, why did he need you? And why was it, in fact, a message about how bad things have happened to me and God still loves me? Why isn't it a message about why those bad things happen? Why God didn't stop it? Why would God allow children to be beaten and starved and all kinds of things like that? It's like the air quotes psychics who are, I'm getting somebody from the other side, and it's a gentleman, and he's maybe just slightly shorter than me when he stands next to me. I mean, that's not really a good measure, but he's saying, is this perhaps your grandfather on your mother's side? Did he have a beard? And he's saying he loves you and he's in a better place and everything is fine. It's never a message of, here's where I hid the money.
Yeah.
It's never a message of, what happened to you was entirely your fault. Those aren't the messages. They're always Barnum statements, which can apply to almost anybody, or other broad generalities of, oh, I bet you're having a tough time. That applies to everybody. Now, I wasn't abused by my grandparents, and I have a father. My dad's still alive. So those sorts of generalizations might not work to me. But if somebody had started with that and said, hey, I see you're having a really bad time. God told me that you dealt with some abuse. And then you watch the person's face to see how they react.
Right.
And that allows you to then change your next couple of sentences to turn that statement into something that is more specific to them. Because it's like saying, oh, you come from a family of 4, don't you? And what does a family of 4 mean? Does that mean mom and dad and 2 kids? Does it mean a mom and 3 kids? Does it mean parents with 4 kids? Because a family of 4 could just be talking about the kids. Could it be there's so many different ways to make that fit. And people are like, oh, he knew things about me he couldn't have known. No, there's no demonstration that he knew anything. And the more accurate they are, the more likely it is that they have hidden information. They've gotten information from somebody else. Now, like Jimmy, I can't say that's what happened. But if we're running around saying, ooh, I'm going to stay with the church because somebody associated with the church seemed to have information that I can't currently explain, congratulations, you should go join every church, every cult, and every group, and you'll be paying every TV psychic reader all of your money for the rest of your life, because they're all going to be able to do that.
Yeah, Brandon, Matt's quite right about the gossip and the stuff in the community, but as he was talking about it, I was also just thinking about what you said. You were 18 years old and you showed up to a church with your aunt. So now pretend you're a pastor. You're essentially a professional social engineer, a new person who is young, in high school or freshly out of high school, has showed up to church, not with his direct family, not with his mother and father, but with his aunt. Here's a few things I know about him. 1, he's having some sort of existential crisis, probably, where he's looking for answers. He's trying to answer these great big questions that are bugging him. And the people that he's doing it with aren't his actual parents. Why not? Like, literally, just as soon as you said 18 with my aunt, that this guy would guess that I don't know whether he directly said you didn't have a father or just said something about your relationship with your father, that then this is what our memories do. And this is what, when people are doing this type of social engineering, this is what happens to a person, that you've now filled in that the hits were a lot hotter and the misses, you don't even remember the misses. But either way, it's literally like, yeah, if I was a psychic on a stage, hey, there's an 18-year-old boy here, not with a date, not with his parents, but with his aunt. You can guess that 90% of the time, yeah, this person's not here with, maybe not at a magic show, but at church, doesn't have a close relationship with their parents.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yep.
And, thank you for explaining that. And I just wanted to respond to Matt real quick. He said that I still would go to church. I don't actually attend church anymore. I stopped going ever since I started to have these doubts. And this was like the only thing that I was still kind of holding on to at the
Oh,
time.
I
And
wasn't. I
so
wasn't. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say you were still going to church.
okay, no, you're fine. It's okay. So, yeah, I guess I can just say thank you guys for being helpful. It definitely helps me
Sure.
open my eyes, and I want to get better. And just, I guess my next question would be, what advice would you have for someone like me in the current
Call
situation that
recovering
I'm
from
in?
religion.
Yeah.
You say that one more time?
Reach out to recoveringfromreligion.org. They have a
Oh,
hotline. They
okay.
have counselors. They can direct you towards, more people with better training than we are on how to deal with those things, and put you in touch with people in similar situations, who, might be able to offer you some help and some, companionship and all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. You said recovering from religion, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Recoveringfromreligion.org.
I mean,
Okay,
I know
thank
it sounds like we're wrapping up here, but Brandon, I'm pretty curious about what it sounds like. You've already kind of worked yourself off of Christianity, but you had, like you said, these sort of anchor events that are sort of tying you to it. Is there still beyond that a lingering belief in God? Is there a reason why, or are you currently trying to just deconstruct to wherever it goes, or are you in a position where I'm deconstructing from Christianity, but I'm still sure there's a God that exists?
That's a good question. Yeah, I can't say for certain that I know that a God does exist or that he doesn't exist. I'm in a
Neither
weird
can we.
position. I don't really know how to explain where I am right now.
That's fine.
Yeah, I get it. All right, cool.
It's actually often much better than the people who think they can, because a good chunk of the people who think they can seem to get it wrong over and over again.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've watched a lot of your debates against different Christian speakers. It's just embarrassing. I just think to myself, man, I don't want to be a Christian. Matt is just destroying everybody.
Well, send us those
Oh,
Christians.
man.
Tell them to call in, man. The
Yeah.
ones that think they know better for you. But Brandon, oh shit, I had a last question before you left and I lost it. Oh, not a last question. You were asking for advice. Here's my last bit of advice. Brandon, you don't have to go through a deist phase. You don't have to do it. I promise it's fine if you don't.
What is a deist phase? I'm not too sure.
It's where you decide that an absolutely undetectable, unprovable God is likely. A God whose likeliness you couldn't give a value to is likely. That's what.
But what Jimmy's doing is kind of like saying, "Hey, Brandon, please remember you don't have to go through a I'm spiritual but not religious phase either." Which you might end up going through. I just don't understand what the hell spiritual means to anybody. But anyway, I appreciate the call, Brandon, and thanks for talking. Don't forget recoveringfromreligion.org. And they have online chat stuff and everything else. It's potentially great not only for just talking to somebody, who has been through this or knows somebody who's been through it, but also there are groups. There are actually meetup groups of people who are in the process of deconstructing or finding their way out of religion. If you feel that you would benefit from sitting down and talking to other people who are going through something similar. I'm not necessarily the best person to talk to because I found my way out of religion a long time ago and have been so engrossed and in the deep end of combating it that there are some things that people say when they're deconstructing which just doesn't make sense to me because it doesn't reflect my experience. Like I never had a serious fear of hell. And that's because I walked down the aisle at a revival at the age of 5 and accepted Jesus into my heart. And from that moment on, I was convinced that I was not going to hell. And so the only thing I was worried about was trying to let people who were going to go to hell know that there was a way for them to avoid it. Then when I deconstructed and found my way out of religion, the fear of hell went away and, because it doesn't exist. So I went from, the second I found out, basically, somebody convinced me that hell was real, I accepted whatever it was that kept me out of there. And then later, when I figured out that wasn't real, there was no baggage or trauma from it. And hopefully you don't suffer baggage from any of that as well. But I'd look into cold reading, just to see if you see some of the same trends there. Darren Brown, yes, has some videos up about it. Well, there's others, but I'm not going to keep going just because.
Yeah,
we got a nice theist on that.
I just wanted to say, I think I could benefit from participating in those groups because a part of the reason why I transitioned into going to church was because I had lacked that community growing up. I didn't have that family bond. And so being a part of that community at church helped me feel better about my life because I was able to communicate with people and have those connections. And so now that I've separated myself from that group, I am kind of in a weird position where I need more people around me. So I'm glad that you referenced that.
Brandon, everything you just said, pastors know that that's why 18-year-olds show up.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you're aware.
18-year-olds, especially 18-year-old men,
yeah,
don't just decide to go to church out of the blue. That just doesn't happen. And so the second you walk in a door, there are certain things that they can be reasonably confident apply to you.
Yeah. And I don't think they're doing it malicious. Well, I don't know if that's the word I want to use. I don't think they know that they're doing it necessarily. Like, I think it has become subconscious. I think a lot of these people, I think they know certain things they're doing are shitty. But, and especially, like I said, with my dad, where he's literally, finding out from other youth what sins the other ones, and he's using things that he learned in the military as an investigator in the military, basically how to interrogate and get people to rat out the other kids so that it draws attention off of them. Obviously, that sort of shit's malicious. But a lot of these people, like, he probably actually thinks that there's something special about him, that when an 18-year-old boy shows up with his aunt, he can tell he doesn't have a good relationship with his dad. Must have been Jesus that told me that. That's entirely likely. Anyway, we've gone on and on. We won't. This is like the fifth wrap up. Thank you, Brandon, for calling. Yeah. This was a nice call.
Yeah, I have something to add after Brandon.
All right. See you, Brandon.
It was nice meeting you guys. Thank you so much for all the hard work you do.
Thanks.
So, from the Center for Inquiry, I'm gonna get the name wrong. I'm pretty sure it was Ray Hyman, but if it's not, I'll have to kind of look into it and find out who it might have been.
What an awesome last name!
Yeah, the thing that Ray did was he pretended to be a psychic reader for a period of time and practiced the skills of cold reading, and then got so skilled at it that he convinced himself that he could actually do it. That's that's one of the many things that can potentially happen. And it's funny because you've got someone who's a skeptic who on some level knows, hey, what I'm doing is a skill that I trained, where I am, making statements that are perhaps general and working towards a specific, that I'm, manipulating someone into recognizing and giving up information in some cases about themselves. But every now and then you just get such an off the wall hit. Like you just get a feeling, you say something like, wow, did you have a serious problem with your sister at some point? And somebody's like, yes. And you'll find everybody who has a sister has a problem with their sister at some point. So the answer is going to be yes. But also there's ways to phrase it where it's like, you didn't have a fist fight with your brother, did you?
Right.
Because when you say you didn't have a fist fight with your brother, if they never had a fist fight with your brother, then you're correct. They didn't have a fist fight with their brother. But because of the way it's phrased, if in fact they did have a fist fight with their brother, then they'll be like, holy crap, how did they know I had a fist fight with my brother? And so you can use statements like that to gauge reactions. And it is manipulative, and it is a skill you can train. But what Ray, if I'm remembering the story correctly, my apologies, Ray, if I'm not, but Ray got so good at it that he started to think there might be something to it, which is perfectly reasonable. You've got a bunch of people running around claiming they can do something, and you train and hone a skill to do something akin to that, and you find that you're good at it. Well, maybe that means there is something to this, psychic phenomenon. Maybe you are doing some sort of mind reading. Maybe it's, more than what you thought. And so there's a number of people who, despite knowing going into it that they're going to be faking it, have fallen for the "I think I faked it until I made it" type thing. And so now it's like, I'm just too right too often about too many obscure things. There must be something to this. And it takes a lot to talk yourself out of that once you've actually worked yourself into it. But people in positions at churches and greeters, hey, welcome everybody. The second you see somebody who isn't there every week, you start thinking, what are they wearing? Who are they with? How do they look? Are they excited to be here? Do they look like somebody dragged them here? You start picking up on all those cues. If we took youth pastors and pastors in most churches and actually trained them with good clinical psychology, I might actually be in favor of them being actual therapists, because now they're relying on the science. Because some of the people who gravitate towards those jobs are really good at it. They're the people who can always make you feel better. They're the people but I know people like that. I know some people who are absolutely, been an atheist their entire life, and yet they're the person who will always make you feel listened to and valued and respected. When you take somebody like that and put them in a position as a clergy person, that's an incredibly powerful thing for that organization.
Yeah. The thing you were talking about there with the person giving the prediction or the reading where they say you didn't have a fist fight with your brother, did you? What's more impressive and what makes the better charlatans is obviously if you get the hit, you get the good hit, and then the person is blown away. But where their skill is a real skill and they are like the fucking worst liars is actually how they cover the misses. So like when you were describing that one, I can actually think of a similar, I've watched hours and hours of both Darren Brown stuff, but in general, just psychics pretending to be psychics. And the way it would have, because a lot of people, I think, probably even listening, were like, well, if it's a hit, yes, but then how do they cover if it's a no? Literally, that exact phrase. You didn't have a fight with your brother, no? If the person says no, you then affirm their no. You go, yeah right, because you decided ultimately to resolve it a different way. Things might have got heated, but you decided you resolve things differently than that. That's what right, I get that. It's literally, you affirm the misses. And then they think either way. It's fucking so diabolical. It makes me want to throw up.
I've done it. I'm not remotely claiming I'm particularly good at it. And I have friends who've written books on the subject, or at least friendly acquaintances who've written books on the subject. Hi. I'd never claimed to be an expert. And when I'm performing, when I'm doing magic and mentalism, I don't do cold reading. Not as an effect. I don't do, but are there occasions where I might use some cold reading skills to make the performance appear better? Yes, absolutely. And one could even say that a lot of the manipulative sort of patter that magicians will use is a slight, it's a take on cold reading. But not so much as in I'm going to try to find out information from you as it is I'm going to be incredibly compelling that I know and did more than I actually know or did.
Yeah.
But
do you remember the story of Vikram Gandhi too? I don't know if you've heard about him, but he was,
I don't think so.
So I remember listening to his story years ago on NPR, and I'd have to refresh it to get it all right. But it was similar to the thing you were talking about, the guy with the psychic. It was a guy who decided he was going to see how far he could push being a fake guru because he was getting really annoyed with the Hindu adjacent guru spiritual movement in America, and ended up having moments of his followers believing he was some kind of god to the point that he started to question it. And then ultimately, there's the big reveal, obviously, that he didn't continue down that way. He talked about these moments where you're like, wait, am I? Could I be? That he had started to trick himself a little bit too. Similar story. Anyway, we'll move on here. We've got Jose in Kansas, another theist who wants to ask us some questions about some topics. Go ahead, Jose.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Just fine. How are you?
Good.
Doing good, doing good. Can you guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. So I was listening to you guys' start from the very start, and I wanted to know, you guys said that there was you guys had you weren't convinced that there was no hell. Obviously we don't know that. Right? We're living, so we wouldn't know nothing about that. But what convinced you that there was no hell?
Nothing convinced me there is no hell. It's just that nothing convinced me that there is. The burden of proof isn't on me to find a way to stop believing in hell. It's on the people who claim that there is a hell to show that it's real. And they haven't.
Okay.
Jose, to try and save your question a little bit, though, I think you're probably more trying to ask, how did we lose our conviction in the hells that have been presented to us? Because I will say, I think that we know enough about where a lot of these stories come from, where a lot of the myths get passed down from, seeing the adaptations, to the point that I will say, I don't worry at all that I'm going to go to the Christian hell, for example, and that there is good, adequate reason to suspect with some amount of confidence that that is a made-up concept used to control and make people fearful.
Okay, but haven't we realized that in this life there is consequences even for everything that we do? So why wouldn't we have consequences in the afterlife?
Well, first of all, no, there's not always consequences for what we do. Good people have bad things happen to them, and bad people get away with it. But even if there were consequences for everything in this life, you said, why wouldn't that mean that there's consequence in the afterlife? I have no reason to believe there is an afterlife. I have no information about, there's no reason to think that an afterlife is real, or that I know anything at all about how an afterlife might work.
Jose, let me try and make it easy for you.
So here's the question.
Jose,
here's a question about that afterlife.
Jose, hang on.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm just going to return it to you so you understand the way your question just came. I'm just going to ask you a question. What was your favorite food in the before life?
Before life? I don't believe that there was a before life.
Right.
I believe that there is going to be an afterlife because we were...
Hang on. So it's a silly question for me to ask you a question with the presumption that you hold that belief. I didn't ask you whether you believe in a before life. I just asked you a question about the before life, regardless of if you did. So it's the same way your question hits us. Why wouldn't that be true of the afterlife? Well, first you need to demonstrate to any of us that there is an afterlife, and then we could talk about it.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do it the way that I look at it. The way that I look at it is, like, before Columbus and all of them came over here to the Americas, there was Native Americans here. They even believed in the afterlife, even before they met anybody else. They believed in spirits that had passed on from their grandparents, talked to them and all that stuff. So there was kind of a way you could say that they believed in an afterlife even before they even met with anybody else.
So what?
So that's kind of what I'm saying, that they had no communication with anybody else, and yet they believed in an afterlife.
No,
there was
Jose,
no way of Christianity coming through this.
Jose, all sorts of different cultures throughout the entirety of human history have believed in a variety of gods and afterlives. Does that mean that any of them point to anything that's true?
Oh, if we look at it in a big old huge perspective, then
No.
yes, because obviously
Jose,
there was something
No.
there. Because the
No.
Aztecs also believed in it too.
No. It is fallacious. The fact that many people have believed a variety of things in a similar category doesn't mean that there's any truth to it. The fact that people have believed there are ghosts and an afterlife does not mean there are ghosts in an afterlife. That's not evidence. Where is the evidence for an afterlife?
Well, like I said, he had no communication with
Jose,
anybody else in the entire
first of all, that's
world.
not
Stop.
true. Jose, that's not even true.
I'm muted.
Native Americans, indigenous people came from somewhere. They didn't magically pop up on the American continent. So there is traditions that have morphed and had changed along the way. And those spiritual traditions do have origins on other continents. But even if they hadn't, most cultures have also come up with a global flood myth, even ones independent from each other. Most cultures, I think it is most. It is a super common mythology from cultures
Most cultures
independent
don't
of
have
each
a
other.
global flood myth. They have local floods, big floods. But anyway, it wouldn't matter if a group of people who had no interaction with anybody thought there was a God. The time to believe something's after there's evidence for it. So when I asked for the evidence for an afterlife, you said, like I said, I get what you've said. I heard what you've said. What you said isn't evidence for an afterlife. It's evidence that people believed in an afterlife. So let's say there's 5 people who are claiming there's some afterlife. I want to know, what evidence do we have that any of them are correct? That's my question.
It's kind of crazy though that I feel like they kind of had this belief of an afterlife even before anybody even talked to them or even with them.
I didn't ask you what you thought was crazy. I asked you what evidence there was. What evidence, what objectively verifiable evidence does anyone have that any proposed afterlife in the history of the world has ever been true?
Well, the fact that let's see here. You're trying to make me prove that like somebody actually came back and said, yes, there was one. Yeah, I saw it with my own eye.
No, and now I'm muting you. Stop talking and listen. You will learn from this, I promise. I didn't say anything at all about you having to prove that somebody came back. Your brain, when I said, hey, what objectively verifiable evidence is there? Your brain started working and saying, what kind of evidence could he be asking for? I'm not declaring any particular category or type of evidence. I'm asking you, because you're the one that seems to be convinced that an afterlife is possible or probable, and I'm not. I'm asking you, what objectively verifiable evidence do you have that any particular afterlife is true? That's all I'm asking.
Right. Well, I believe that there is because of what I grew up in, my teachings, my beliefs.
Nope.
I believe that
I'm wrong.
one.
Never mind,
that's
Jose.
My belief.
Never mind, Jose. I'm wrong because I thought that I could actually talk to you about evidence and you would learn something, but instead your brain just shut down and said that you're convinced. I don't care that you're convinced. I care why you're convinced. And if you're convinced because you grew up being taught stories, that isn't evidence that the stories are true. That's evidence that people shared stories. Do you have any objectively verifiable evidence for any afterlife ever in the history of the world? The answer is no.
Okay. Here's what I would say about that.
That's a yes or no question.
Right, well,
you're either going to answer yes or you're going to answer no.
When Jesus was walking on.
Look, all right, you can tell me all you want about Jesus. I guarantee you I know more about this shit, including the Bible, than you do. My question was, and we're not moving forward at all until you answer this question, and then you can continue. Do you have any objectively verifiable evidence that points to the conclusion that any afterlife claim is true? That's my question. Yes or no?
I do.
What is it?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
Hey, can I talk now?
Listen,
Hey,
smart
so
ass.
whenever
No, you can't. I'm muting you. Listen
Wasn't
to me
even
very
waiting for the
carefully.
answer to the question.
You just said that you have objectively verifiable evidence of an afterlife. I would like you to present that evidence and not do the "can I talk now?" Because of the two of us, I'm the one that's demonstrated an ability to answer a question honestly, to listen to the question that's being presented, and to present a question and an answer that is relevant. So I'm going to unmute you again. I would like you to present the objectively verifiable evidence of an afterlife. Go.
Okay. Whenever Jesus was walking on this earth, all the people that were around him were Jewish.
Okay, I'm going to mute you because I asked for objectively verifiable evidence, and you're now talking about Jesus. There is nothing about Jesus that is objectively verifiable. You can't prove that he existed, that he walked on the earth, or anything.
Are you serious? So you're just gonna mute me every time I try to talk?
Every time you don't
No,
follow
sir.
instructions,
No,
for sure,
sir.
man.
I'm going to mute you every time you're dishonest as fuck, like I did just now. Here's the thing. I'm looking for objectively verifiable evidence. Do you know what objectively verifiable evidence means?
This guy, you're just gonna keep muting me.
This guy is just going to keep avoiding the question. This guy is just going to keep being dishonest in conversation. This guy, he's not going to answer the question. This guy, Jose, is terrified of actually being challenged. You want to play that game? I'll play that game. I don't got to mute you at all. Do you know what objectively verifiable evidence is? Do you know what objectively verifiable evidence?
Quit muting me.
Answer
How about
the
I
fucking
mute you
question
right now? See, I don't have to mute you, but I can mute you. I can keep you on mute for the rest of your fucking life if I want to. Do you know what objectively verifiable evidence is? That's what I asked. Why can't you answer that?
Am I unmuted now?
Are you going to answer the question now?
Yeah. I'm trying to, but you keep muting me and you keep talking.
You're so full of shit, you fucking liar. Here's the question. Do you know what objectively verifiable evidence is? Yes or no?
Oh, this guy right here. That means
This
that
guy
I need
right
to prove
here,
something,
avoiding the
correct? Like, I need to prove it.
simple fucking questions.
It's a
You
yes or
fucking
no question.
coward. Answer the question.
I've said yes. I've said yes like three different times and he keeps muting
No,
me.
you haven't. No, you haven't, you fucking liar. Now you're muted. So I'm going to unmute you. Stop pretending that you're being oppressed and just answer the fucking question so that we can get on to your absolutely bullshit explanation. Do you know what objectively verifiable evidence is? Yes or no?
Yes. See?
Please present your objectively verifiable evidence for an afterlife.
Okay. Oh, this question, one of those things where you're trying to make it to where I have to literally prove, like I gotta.
Okay. You're muted again. I didn't ask you to comment on the question. I asked you to present your objectively verifiable evidence. I'm going to unmute you again, and you are either going to present your objectively verifiable evidence, or you are going to be acknowledged as a coward who cannot fulfill his obligation under 1 Peter 3:15 to defend the Jesus that you believe in and the afterlife you believe in. Which one is it? Are you going to present the evidence, or are you going to whine like a little bitch?
Dude, who peed in your cereal this morning? My gosh.
You
All right.
did. You're
So
peeing in
listen,
my cereal right
I'm
now.
trying to
making it
I'm trying to
impossible.
tell
Shut.
you.
You're muted again. I don't know why you can't have a fucking conversation where I ask a question and you answer it, and then we evaluate your answer. But you are incapable of having a discussion. This is your last chance. I'm going to unmute you. I would like for you to present the objectively verifiable evidence that you have for an afterlife. If you say or do anything other than that objectively verifiable evidence for an afterlife, I will hang up on you. Guaranteed. Here we go. What is your objectively verifiable evidence for an afterlife?
Oh, Andrew.
Goodbye.
Who the fuck is Andrew?
Andrew is Big Papa Fascist, who I walked out on for being a coward, just like that little bitch right there, unable to actually have a conversation, to present evidence, or do anything else. Your brain is stuck. Your brain is poisoned. Your brain is the product of religious bullshit, turning your mind into a sewer that will not allow you to think clearly or to argue honestly. You are a garbage thinker. Merry Christmas.
Also, gross that like your final word would be to brag about who your like your little prophet hero guy is. What a fucking low bar. Jesus Christ. Get better heroes.
Absolutely embarrassing.
Like fucking bottom of the barrel shit.
Here's
I could
the
name
thing.
5 Christians right now that'd be less embarrassing than that, but they'd still be embarrassing.
Here's the thing. None of this is hard. Hey, do you have objectively verifiable evidence of an afterlife? You could say no. You could say, nope, I actually don't have any objectively verifiable evidence for an afterlife. Okay, why do you believe it? Well, I believe the narrative. I believe the story. I believe the stories in the Bible. I think it's more reasonable that a lot of people talking about an afterlife points to the conclusion that there is an afterlife. Cool. Do you understand? And we could continue going like that. Here's why I don't think that's a particularly good reason. But you can't do that. Instead, you just went with, well, what I was told, what I was raised, here's the Bible, here's what Jesus said. None of that is objectively verifiable evidence. And I'm convinced that when Jose said that he knew what objectively verifiable evidence was, he was lying then, just like he was lying every other time that he wanted to whine about this guy. Yeah, this guy is going to manage the call so that you don't get to lie and so that we don't waste time with you presenting your feels as if they're fucking evidence, because they're not. And you, before you ever call me back, should go ask Jesus what Jesus wants you to say to me, because you are an embarrassingly bad representative of any God.
You'll probably ask Andrew what he's supposed to say.
Yeah. What should I do now, Big Papa Fascist?
I need someone to think for me.
He cut me off before I could go to transphobic stuff.
By the way, thank you. We got a bunch of I'll just first name it on here. Joshua, Eric, Elizabeth, Candace, another Elizabeth, different Elizabeth, Wendy, and Stav. Thank you all for your we've got some mug orders going in. Look, nice. I know I put the most work in on Forrest's, but it is a competition. Stop voting for Forrest, because I cannot affirm his assertion where he was like, I know I'm asking for the most work, but it'll sell the most. But will it sell more than the rest combined, which is how much the work was? So you guys, you gotta stop voting for Forrest. I'm sorry.
Oh my God. If Forrest beats me, I'll never hear the end of it.
Bro, Arden's beating you right now too.
What?
Yeah. Arden's mug is adorable.
It's the dimples thing.
Yeah. So Arden has a mug that's it's got her like iconic glasses and 2 little dimples, and then the caption is even my mug has dimples. It's pretty adorable. Anyway, it's a contest, y'all. You're voting with those mugs. All right. Let's see. 720-619-2288. There's also a link in the description if you are a theist and you are capable of actually answering the questions, of actually being honest, and actually having a conversation. Instead of going with, when we say, hey, what's your evidence? Well, you're telling me that so you're with you just answer. You just answer it and we're good to go. Anyway, Colin.
Just say, I don't know more often.
That's true too. By the way, 1,250 of you have voted and 9% of you, so about 100 and some change, have said that you do believe in the Christmas story. And we're talking about Magic Baby. We're not talking about whether you believe the movie The Christmas Story exists or something ridiculous like that. So if you're one of those people who said that and you're talking about the Magic Baby or the Holy Baby, sorry, I'll try and be a little more respectful to get your call. We'd love to hear from you. Call us and tell us all about that. But in the meantime, we have John in Texas who wants to talk about the meaning of life. Go ahead, John.
Hi, Mr. Snow, and hi, Mr. Dillahunty. Thank you all for taking my call. I'll just get straight to the point. So I was listening to a theist earlier talking about how religion gives us
meaning in our life. But honestly, I think that's just bullshit because honestly, I don't really see any meaning in our life because I think we're just here. We live our life. And honestly, I think my life means more to the people that are around me, like my children, my family. And I really don't really care about there being a greater meaning in life other than just like living and being happy with what I do. Or I just want to know like what y'all think about this as well.
I disagree with your initial assertion, but I think it's just the way you're wording it. I do think that religions give their members meanings in life, but it's issued meaning. It's somebody else's meaning. And the greater meaning that they're pointing to, they have no demonstration that greater meaning is true, that they're correct. But I don't, so I don't believe in like capital THE, the meaning of life, but I believe there are many meanings in life. And if you are not religious, you will spend a lot of your life choosing your own meanings. And if you are religious, you'll spend a lot of your life choosing your own meanings also, but some of them you'll choose other people's and what other people have told you to choose. At the end of it all, everybody's making their choices, what their meaning's going to be and what they're going to act on. But yeah, I don't think it's right to say that a person doesn't find meaning from religion. Clearly they do. It's just whether or not that is a validated, that's not the right word I want for it, but a justified meaning or true.
Yeah, maybe basically. I didn't word it. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just trying to say I worded it wrong, but honestly, I'm glad to be alive. I like my life. And then all of a sudden, like whenever I talk to theists and really religious people, and they tell me, well, if you don't believe in God, then there's no meaning in your life. Like, what are you doing with your life? And I'm just like, I'm just living it. I'm enjoying being here. And I just try to do everything that I can to enjoy the life that I live, be the best person that I can be, do good to others, and just be happy. And I don't need religion to do that.
Yep. So a friend of mine compiled a book. And if you go to, I'm double checking the URL right now. Yes. If you go to theatheistbook.com, Chris Johnson interviewed over, I think it was around or over 100 atheists on meaning in life and purpose, or meaning and purpose in a life without a God view. And I have multiple copies of the book downstairs. There's also a film because he shot interviews. Full disclosure, I appear in the book and I appear in the film. And he did the project. There are tons of people in there that are, there are people in there that I don't like, because there's plenty of atheists that I don't like, but there's also some incredibly brilliant atheist thinkers. And it runs the gamut. It's not just like, A.C. Grayling and Dan Dennett and James Randi. It's also Darren Brown, who we talked about earlier, who's a British mentalist, probably the greatest living mentalist, but scientists and philosophers and magicians and, people from all walks of life, rock climbers, or a rock climber. And it's all about this. And it's, hey, here's how we can give our own lives meaning and purpose. And that should be enough. Last week we had a call from someone who, I think it was Davis. I think Davis called back, if I'm remembering. If I'm not, my apologies to Davis, but Davis or whoever was essentially saying that, or one of the questions that I asked was, would you be okay if the government picked your job? Now, in hindsight, I don't think this is Davis I'm talking about, so my apologies. But my question was, would you be okay if the government picked your job? Because generally people say no. Because, there's like, oh, what if the government assigns me, a doctor? I mean, okay, I might be okay with that, although maybe I'm squeamish at the sight of blood. But if the government assigns me trash collector, I might not be as fond of that, even though, the world needs garbage collectors, and I love the guys that come around and do ours. And it's just, okay, but the issue here is, what is your preference, and why are you willing to set your preference aside to let the government pick. And normally, every single person I've ever asked, would you want the government to pick your job, has said no until last week when somebody said yes. And it's like, oh,
yeah,
well,
I
would
actually
you
listened
also...
to that call. And
Yeah,
whenever he said yes, I was really surprised because I'm thinking, I'm like, no, I wouldn't want the government to decide for me.
Yeah. I didn't want to dig in and be like, I don't think you're telling the truth. But if it's like, okay, the government's going to decide that your job is to clean the toilets in Grand Central Station, and you're going to get paid minimum wage. Are you still okay with that? What if, how is that fair for the government to pick that for you? And then for me, they picked a professional video game player where I stream video games and, get paid $8.2 million a year. Or I play football and get paid $20 million a year, whatever it is. When somebody said that, yeah, they would want the government, it tells me a lot about them, but it was really unusual to get that answer. And
I thought it was unusual too.
Yeah, it blew my answers out of the water, because how do you take someone who doesn't have an objection to someone else steering their life and then try to convince them that they're allowed to and possibly might be better off if they defined what they wanted their life to be? Maybe they're not. Maybe that person is just, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are some people who just would absolutely love it if everybody made all the decisions for them, and there's just no ambition. It's all apathy. I don't know. But that book,
right?
The book. If you go to the Atheist book, yeah, no, sorry, I went back right after I left a gap for you. Theatheistbook.com. You can find the book there. You can find the film there, and it is lots of great thoughts on meaning and purpose in a life without a God.
Okay, well, that sounds very good to me. Honestly, I think I was just trying to say that I think a lot of theists just try to find meaning into their life using religion, and that religion gives them a purpose, but I don't think that that's always the best purpose. And honestly, because I don't think that religion brings the best out of people. In fact, I remember when I was religious, I remember my religious self as a intolerant, homophobic, transphobic, and hateful bigot in the name of God. But now that I am an atheist and that I've left religion, I'm just a much, much better person. But and I feel that my life is just so much better now. That meaning that I thought that religion gave me was just bullshit.
Yep.
For sure.
Right. Oh, and I did have just a random question for you, Mr. Dillahunty. I do know that the way back in the day, you did do a debate with the Church of Christ in San Antonio, Texas. Is there somewhere where I can actually watch you debate them, or was it not recorded?
They should be all online. Let me check YouTube and do.
The reason why I ask is because I actually was raised in the Church of Christ. My father is a preacher in the Church of Christ, and so I'm very familiar with that religion since I grew up in it. I was just like wondering if I could watch you debate some of the preachers that debated with you.
Yep. If you search Matt Dillahunty versus Israel Rodriguez, there's at least one video up there of one of the debates. I did this was in 2014 at the Church of Christ conference. I don't know how many videos are still up there, but there's a channel with almost no subscribers. We should probably grab these and save them off for me to post somewhere else so that they don't get lost to time.
Word.
Right. And I mean, is for sure that their beliefs are very absurd. And I used to believe those beliefs. They're even more absurd. I think that they're the most absurd beliefs in religion because, people in the Church of Christ believe that we are the only true church of the New Testament, that the rest of the churches are denominations and they are not true Christians and therefore they will go to hell. And And I used to believe that, but nowadays I think, how in the world can they believe that?
Cult's gonna cult, my friend. It was a sad day when I found out Weird Al belonged to that church. Hurt my feelings. Especially because Church of Christ isn't even really supposed to do pop music.
I used to love back in the day, but now it's just, it's cringy.
Yeah. Well, thank you, John.
All right. Thank you all very much. And I wish you all a very good day. And I just want to say, Brandon, if you're listening to me right now, I was in the same boat as you were just a few months ago. And you can get out of this and you can become a much happier person. And I wish you all the best in your deconversion if that's what you wish to do. And I recommend that you do that. But thank you all very much for taking my call. And I wish you all a very good day and happy holidays.
Sure. Thanks, John.
Thanks.
For the record, we don't mind people saying Merry Christmas to us. But it's not I don't care anyway.
I don't mind.
Yeah. All right. I just want to say thank you. We've gotten several new orders. So thank you, Carrie, Michael, Kelly, Gerald, John, and Jacob. But I do want to mention look, I know I did a great job on Forrest mug. I did. I did great. But all of you bought Forrest mug. This is a contest. My goodness. All of you, we're getting absolutely trampled by tomorrow when we're actually doing the event. We're going to have to bring our A game. Cause he is up to some silly number. Gosh, dang it. Yeah.
I'm going to apologize in advance.
For losing?
No, for this next one.
Oh, I've got some thoughts. If you want to, if you need to take a beat, I also recognize the person who's calling. Andrew from Florida, theist, wants to tell us something we already know. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Just because there's no evidence for God doesn't mean there isn't a God. We're very aware. Go ahead then and proceed with the knowledge that all three of us are on the exact same page as that.
Oh, no, if we're on the same page. But first, did you guys read the first part of what I wrote?
All I see is that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence.
Which is wrong. Absence of evidence.
I want to know why I was still blocked.
Oh, my God.
That I saw from the call you had earlier, and I said on the show, email me, contact@qnaline.com, and we'll talk about it. But we're not doing tech support on the show. That's not what the show's for.
Sorry, my fault. Okay, we'll move on.
So here's the thing. You said absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. You're wrong. It is, but it isn't sufficient necessarily to confirm absence. But you're right when you say that just because there is no evidence for God does not mean that there isn't a God, and we wouldn't say that. But thank you for acknowledging that there is no evidence for God. But the statement, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, is a general truism that is ultimately false. Because if there is an absence of evidence where evidence would be expected if the claim were true, then that absence of evidence is evidence for absence or evidence against the proposition. It just may not be enough to confirm it. So if you say, I just killed somebody and stuffed the body in the trunk of my car, and we go out to the trunk of your car and we find no body, no fibers, no hair, no blood, no nothing, that absence of evidence for your claim is evidence for the fact that your claim may be wrong, but it isn't enough to confirm that your claim is wrong. So what you're saying is that just because we don't have evidence for God doesn't mean that God's not real. You're correct. It also doesn't mean that God is real. And the time to believe that God's real is after there's evidence. And so you're in a position where you're a theist who is saying there is no evidence for God, and yet you believe anyway. So how do you justify believing in a God when you admit there's no evidence?
I continue to experience God whenever I practice any religion.
How do you know it's God you're experiencing? Andrew, why are there these giant pauses?
I don't want to say the wrong thing and then Matt get upset.
Oh,
scared of Matt. Okay.
So you experience God no matter what religion you practice. What do you mean when you say you experience God?
there's an overwhelming presence and connection to the universe whenever I practice any religion.
How do you know that it is a connection to the universe or a connection to God that is responsible for the overwhelming presence you feel?
I don't know for sure if it's
right.
If it's God as in a literal being or just whatever the universe is.
And how do you know then? Because you just gave two options. As those are the options. It's either God or it's whatever the universe is. How have you eliminated the possibility that your brain is capable of producing chemicals which causes you an immense feeling, an overwhelming feeling of fullness or attachment to the universe? How have you eliminated the possibility that it is entirely internal, your experience, and that it actually has to be an external force causing you to have that experience?
I know it's internal, and neuroscience proves that these experiences do cause reactions in the brain.
But you've just contradicted yourself. If you know that it is an entirely internal experience, why would you ascribe it to God or a connection to whatever the greater universe is, as you were saying? You said your two options were God or whatever the external universe thing is, but then you've just said you actually already know the answer is the third option, that it's entirely internal, that it is a neurological reaction. You need to now, what's the word? Make all of that make sense. Reconcile it. That was the word.
The internal reaction, physiological, that we can measure and quantify within using empirical data and using empirical means.
Yes.
Has to be caused by something.
Right.
And so when we practice
wait, Andrew, I already asked you how you eliminated that it was internal processes, internal chemical reactions. When you say it has to be caused by something, I agree. I do not agree that it has to be a single thing outside of your body. I think sometimes it is. I think sometimes you hear great music and that sets off the chemical reaction, and music is adequate to do it. I think sometimes it's charismatic people who get people into a certain zone. We know that that works whether it's for a religious proposition or a great many other things. It's why things like MLMs are so popular and seem so similar to religion, despite the fact that they're not pushing religion or God. They're pushing some sort of like bullshit cleaning spray and then the ability to be your own boss. Literally, no one is disagreeing that there could be external factors, but you've said that it isn't internal, that it must be caused by an external factor, which I disagree with. I think people can put themselves into those states themselves, or you could potentially do some sort of psychedelic, that you could call that an external thing. And there are other things, like I said, music, people. But you've said it, your assertion is that it's not those things, that it's this greater magical thing that we can't detect its influence. We can't actually get out the machine that detects the God rays that are setting you off, even though the physiological reaction we can completely measure. You're saying there's this unmeasurable external force instead of those things we can measure. What justification do you have for that, as opposed to what I have proposed, which you've 90% agreed with, is the actual thing causing that?
Self-transcendence.
Smoothly, dong. Just saying that was meaningless, what you just said. Self-transcendence. I've asked you what evidence you have for your assertion that there is an external force other than a natural force, other than something in the material world, a charismatic person, music, whatever, putting yourself into a trance because you're thinking about things you love. You're thinking about you're giving yourself natural serotonin hits, and then you get a rush. You get adrenaline, you get dopamine, and now you're in a state of just feeling fucking great about yourself. How have you eliminated the natural thing that happens every day over all kinds of things, and hold to the assertion that it is true that there is an external magical force like God or this concept of the universe that you've pointed to?
And Andrew hung up.
Personal transcendence. Schmoobly dong.
So it's wild that he called twice, both from a web thing. Maybe he's going to call back again.
Yeah.
One, he wanted to know why he was still banned. And what's weird is he included his email address.
Because he's blocked in chat, so he's hoping that, including his Google account, that I can find him and unblock him in chat.
I get it.
Yeah.
My point is, if you read his email address, which I'm not going to give out, it includes the word Roman Catholic.
Yeah.
And yet, every time Andrew calls, he's not defending anything at all like a Catholic theology. He is instead defending some vague deistic, theistic notion of, and he's like, no matter what religion I practice, I experience God. Well, here's a question then, Andrew. What is the sole common factor in you practicing a bunch of different religions? It's you. You are the common factor. And so when you say you experience God, I want to know what that means. And we got a whole bunch of nothing right down to when you were saying like self-transcendence. I don't know what self-transcendence means. You'd need to tell me what it is, how you know it's happening. But all of Jimmy's questions were, okay, you've had some experience. How did you determine that it's not internal, that it's not internally psychological? Oh, it is. Okay. What Jimmy's saying, not to speak for him, is when you say that something is an internal psychological experience, that means there is not an external source. And yet you are thinking that you're interacting with a God, which one would normally presume is an external source. And so the solution then becomes, Andrew, are you God? And Andrew, I think, would perhaps say yes, in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, kind of. I mean, you could look at it like this. It's wild that you've got someone here who's calling in to defend a fuzzy abstract God belief, and then every single time we get to ask questions to try to get to the crux of what it is. Here's something. If your definition of God and experience of God is indistinguishable from someone taking a bong rip, don't call me. I've taken bong rips.
Yeah.
I get. And it's not, I'm not saying that you're wrong, and I got no problem with people taking bong hits. I'm just pointing out that if what you're defending is so ill-defined, and all you're saying is that I've had experiences that are really weird to me and might be God, cool. When you figure out what they are, call us back.
Yeah.
But if we just did, we're trying to have conversations with people who are willing to defend their beliefs and preferably willing to defend their beliefs with verifiable, objective evidence, which Jose doesn't seem to know what the hell it is. And if you don't have it, you don't have it. And you can say that. And you can say, I don't know. And you can say, well, I just want to, investigate this, or what do you guys think about this? And we'll tell you.
Yeah.
But if you're calling in to say, no matter what religion I practice, I keep experiencing God. One of the first questions we're going to ask is, how do you know what you're experiencing is God? And if your answer is, I don't, what do we do?
He was kind of asserting that it was the only thing it could be. And then, like I said, he said his schmoobly dong line. But so I've edited a lot of his clips recently too, because we're kind of going back and doing a bunch of stuff for the Line Edge, which we'll be developing. We'll talk about that another time. But if I had to guess, in the totality of all the stuff I've seen, I think that he is one of these people who actually kind of had like I wouldn't say dated, but had a side fling with a person once who was kind of like this, where it was like, somehow getting reassurance from us that his version is slightly less unreasonable than other people's, or that there's some uncertainty that we have that he can comfortably live in, would then validate his totally not the version he actually practices in real life. Because he does actually hold to some of the Catholicism stuff. This was a guy who once called me, it's where if you've seen the clip of me screaming, that's the fucking point, in my highest register. It was with Andrew, basically defending the Catholic Church during Nazi occupation and stuff. Like, he definitely is. I feel it's very likely he's one of those, goes to the Catholic Church, and when he's through the doors, whatever is coming out of the mouth of the guy, he's not challenging the priest. He's not challenging the Pope. He's not challenging, but then he gives lots of concessions because he feels like if he can have some level, it's almost like a type of pick-me atheism or pick-me theism. He's one of the good ones, one of the good theists to us, and that would somehow justify him is the impression I have from him, that he thinks he's going to like be, and in the relation, it was actually why that relationship I had ended. It was with a person who wanted me to sort of like give them some sort of feeling that their version of Wiccanism, if that's the correct form, being Wiccan, is more reasonable than most people's. And they just wanted that but I'm special in this way. And my autistic ass was like, nope, these are the rules. You are not the exception to me. I'm not mean about it, but it's like, no, I think that your faith is as unfounded as anybody else's, and that it is unreasonable for you to hold it. And I don't think it's harmless. And I don't, anyway, that was pretty much why it ended, and not well.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Did I hear you correctly that this mug competition is going to be whoever's design sells the most? Yeah. All of the other hosts are going to have to wear a t-shirt with that design on their shows for the
month of February. Yeah. Yeah.
Like the whole month, or once during the month?
I mean, I kind of want to ask everyone to do the whole month, but it's not really fair to you and I. Well, especially you do 8 shows a month to everybody else's. I do 3 to 4. Everyone else does 1 to 2. So probably at least one show would be the fair thing to do.
Okay. Because I'm going to make use of my social media, because right now there's a couple thousand people tuned into us live.
Yeah.
But I've got lots of subscribers on various social media platforms, and so I just realized that the best thing that I could do is to post a link
just to
the mugs. No. I posted it to the actual list and just said mine was the best and that they needed to go buy it, and explained what the competition is. Yeah. So that maybe we'll see a spike in sales of your gay homie, which I think is just funny as hell.
Yeah, it's a pride thing. I'm frustrated because we are getting, Forrest has 28 mugs sold and hasn't actually been on a show to promote his mug yet.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, one of those mugs is literally from somebody a special person in my life, which I was like, how dare you buy his mug?
It's a great little slogan.
You're second place with 10. I'm third with 9. I saw in the last few minutes Dave's was getting a few, and I do want to be clear about Dave's, and I put it in the description. Dave couldn't. We wanted it just turned out he couldn't draw it. So to simulate Dave drawing a pretty flower, I put a big ass roll of tape in my left hand, and I am right-handed, and I drew it as good as I could with all of that obstruction. So that is a pretty flower. It's in the description. Dave actually ended up not being able to draw it himself, so we simulated it. And if anything, that's actually a better flower than Dave would be able to make. But full disclosure, because we don't need some bullshit scandal down the road where people are like, they lied about the Dave mug. Anyway, I
like all the mugs.
I do too.
I like Aron's DNA snake.
Yeah.
I could, like, if it weren't for the fact that we've already reworked our brand and are making some adjustments, I mean, I could see a DNA type snake logo thing. That I jimmy myself on Xmas. It's almost too much of an inside joke, but that's all we care about. See, here's the thing.
We're only selling them
There
for a
are
week.
There are over 2,000 people right now. Today's Christmas fucking Eve. It is Sunday at almost 4:00 Central on Christmas Eve, and there are a couple thousand people tuned in. And we actually not only got calls, but we got calls from theists as well, where other shows might just, take the day off and give up and, not going to actually engage. We need to interact with all the supporters of the line. It's just awesome.
While you were giving that speech, someone bought more Forrest.
Whoever that is, Forrest watching and just buying a bunch of copies. Is he buying his own fucking mug for everybody in his family? Is that
They're
what's
different
happening?
addresses. I thought of that too. Now, I will say, Jabari, you're kind of my hero right now because Jabari bought 5 different mugs.
Oh, that's nice.
Luckily, obviously I am the egomaniac that I am, and I can get a little bit of the only design I had no say in was Matt's actually. Matt and Arden did those completely by themselves. That one by themselves. The Dr. Venus's Go juice, which is actually great. That's one of the ones I'm definitely buying for myself. It was implemented. The art was actually done by not that it's important, but the art was done by Arden. The concept, the idea was mine. And so I'm going to, luckily, whoever wins, unless it's Matt, I'm going to take credit in some way because I got my fingerprints on all of them.
I can't even take credit for mine. It just was like an obvious thing I said. And as soon as I said it, a little light, I could almost physically see a light bulb go off over Arden's head. Just like, oh, I know exactly what to do. And Random whipped it out. What I want to know is somebody bought 5 mugs and there's only 7. So who did they hate?
Who did they not want? I know the answer, but I won't say.
Yeah. We're not. This is for fun. It's a way to, I first of all, mine starts with basically somebody being homophobic and transphobic in a way that, we talked a little bit about, Arden and I did a Black Non-Believers fundraiser yesterday. And we came in, and Mandisa is the only person who will ever get to tell me, you're going to show up and you're going to talk about this subject. Anybody else tries to do that, I'm like, no, I'll show up, but I'm deciding what I talk about. But Mandisa is like, hey, we want you to come in with Arden and talk about trans stuff. And I'm like, yes, ma'am, I'll do whatever you say. Because I adore Mandisa. And it was really fun to get to do that. But I got to point out something. I had to interrupt a show, an episode of The Hang Up a few weeks back, with a dissertation that I wrote on the fly during the show on whether or not I'm straight. Because the number one thing that people have been attacking me for lately is, oh, you're gay, homie, and it's okay to be gay, and you're just, why are you hiding that you're gay? And all, it's so weird. And they're so unimaginative in the things that they think are going on in my personal life and everything. It's funny to actually listen to that and try to figure out where their heads are. And so when that one person just made one comment of "you're gay, homie," and that was the entire comment, we just laughed so hard that it became a thing. And we were like, okay, we're just going to reference it here because it's like, if I'm gay, I got no problem with it. I haven't been dating dudes or anything else. But it's like, what struck me is they know that for the entirety of my life, I have dated and, well, they don't know that I've had sex, but I have, in fact, had sex, and have dated and interacted exclusively romantically with cis women. I'm now in a multi-year, committed, loving, super awesome relationship with a trans woman. And instead of saying, oh, you're bi or you're pan, it's you're gay. And this is the misogynistic thing that I grew up with, even when I was a Christian or maybe a fledgling atheist finding my way out in things like the Navy, where hazing occurs. And, growing up in a period of time where gay is just the insult you throw out. Yeah. Which I'm ashamed to say I participated in at some point way in the past too. And, these aren't the first people to accuse me of being gay or whatever. And it's like, it just says so much about you.
Yeah.
And so I was like, if we're going to put something on a cup for competition, I want it to be that, because I can just imagine the people who are watching right now, who are the biggest line supporters, who have been so helpful to me, you know, with my Wednesday night therapy and everything else, can just pick up a cup and just inhale the wonderful aroma of coffee, smothering, although I don't like coffee, smothering the stench of misogyny and homophobia.
I love coffee. It just can't. I have to do decaf, unfortunately. I'm going to give a few more shout outs here. You know, at some point I could try to bend the, I'm not going to do it. I was pretty tempted to go, anybody who buys my mug today, I will send you a personalized video. Thank you. But that seems really unfair, since I technically could set everybody up at the line to be able to do it. But it's like, believe me, the person running the line, getting everybody into stuff like that, it is exactly like herding cats. It is the best. Anyway, thank you, Lynn, Andrew, Richard, Amanda, Michelle, Alexander, Tyler, Darren, Matthew, Kathleen, Jabari, Eric, Kevin, who bought 5 of your mug. Kevin wants you to win, I think. Carson,
cool. Michaela,
Francis, and Owen, all of you for the orders you've put in that last little period of time we were chatting. Just so everybody knows, the mugs will, so a lot of people have come late. We're doing a mug brawl for Christmas and New Year's Eve. Basically, everybody who's going to be there, the 7 of us who will be at those events, we're all pushing our own mug. And whoever's mug sells the most, in February, all of the hosts will wear a shirt featuring that graphic. Now, funny enough, we're not going to make that graphic available for everyone to buy. The only way you can get these holiday graphics will be buying before the end of the day, January 1st. So January 1st at midnight. And then they will go off sale until next year. And next year, people might decide they want to do a different design. I feel like if Forrest keeps winning with such a large margin, most of us probably will want a little a little more hands-on design, a little longer, takes many more hours design, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But anyway, that's the thing that's going on. Just a little fun little, I want to use the word mug club, but that's a thing Steven Crowder does, and I don't want to use any terms Steven Crowder does. Thank you, Marcy, for your order. Just went in too. Hell yeah.
I sent you a couple of notes over there. It's fun watching chat because people are saying all kinds of stuff, and I'm not going to get into any of the stuff over there. So I'll give you the rundown as Jimmy's looking at stuff, because I don't have all of the information, but I will say this. Monday, tomorrow, is going to be a special Christmas episode of live events hanging out on the line. Jimmy will be here for the entire thing. I will be here for parts of it. Arden will be here for parts of it. The other hosts will be here for parts of it as they have time. One thing that's always struck me as odd or fun is Christmas. People celebrate in different ways, and sometimes in entirely secular ways. And so there are atheist, godless heathens that are going to spend the entire day surrounded by their Christian relatives, feeling alone and ostracized, although some of them are going to have fun with it. And you can pull us up on your phone while everybody's sitting around talking about the joyous things that Christ has done in their life, and how Satan's been really, really, making their church and them struggle. You can actually just pull it up, have it on your phone, keep it low and quiet. And when they say something just absolutely ridiculous, you can go like, hey, I heard there's a show you guys could call into. You shouldn't ruin Christmas, but we'd be happy to ruin your Christmas.
We'll do it for you.
I will fuck your grandma up. Your grandma comes in with hey, I've been believing in Jesus all my life, and he's done amazing works on it. And I can be like, okay, what has he done, and how do you know he actually did it? Well, and I don't want to fuck up your grandma.
I'll just fuck your grandma if she wants.
Ooh.
We're selling so many Forrest mugs every time I refresh. Well, everybody else has become a little boost, but he's up to 38 now. It's a great
That
mug.
Forrest guy. It is. It's well done. Anyway, in addition, Monday's going to be that special Christmas episodes. Tuesday will be an episode of Dying Out Loud with Dave Warnock and Footless Joe. Wednesday, I'll be back on the Hang Up with Jimmy Snow, I'm told. I'm so excited because there's political stuff going on. Not only is Rudy Giuliani now filed for bankruptcy with $140 some odd million judgment against him, which he then went out and talked shit about them on the news, so they sued him again.
Yeah.
This is how stupid these people are.
Yeah. We got to talk about Colorado too. That'll be a big thing.
Yep. The Colorado thing's going to be big. I talked to Andrew Seidel. He's not going to be available till a little bit into January, but we can look forward to getting him back on there. Also, we're heading into an election season, which means the Sometimes Show and the Hang Up and a number of other shows are going to be addressing more and more about what's going on in election coverage, what's happening in different states. And that means that we need you to come in and be ready to call in and tell us what's going on in your area. Now, on occasion, we'll get calls from people in South America or the UK or Israel and whatever else. And those are great for keeping us informed in what's going on in the world. It's just that I don't know how much we can actually do with it. And if we're reaching an audience of 35 people in Peru, I hope we can, help with some change there. But for people in the 50 states, and for example, it can be about a number of different issues. On the Hang Up, one of the things I saw is that Louisiana is reworking their reptile laws, which is going to impact my exotic pet business only a little bit because I don't have to necessarily do work with folks in Louisiana. But changes to the laws are happening all the time, and not just regard to like my secondary and tertiary interests, but also with regard to voting.
Yeah.
The Wisconsin Supreme Court is now under much better management, and they are overturning some gerrymandered districts, which are going to dramatically change the likelihood of voting results in Wisconsin. I can't wait to talk about it more.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So big, I'm going to do the last rounds of thank yous to people who've been putting in orders while we've been talking here, and then we're going to call it a day. But it looks like, oh shoot, where did I leave off? It was after Jabari. I think it was after Marcy. So thank you to Justin, Darko, Pamela, Michelle, Joe, and Lorena, and Sean. Thank you all for your orders in, and for a lot of orders for Forrest amongst those, but some for Matt, a couple for Aron as well. Yeah, we got a little bit of a spread starting to form. Big week coming up. We'll see you tomorrow at the Christmas event. I'll see you again on Wednesday with Matt. And then I think Matt and I are back here next Sunday, though we'll decide what we're going to do, if we're going to do a typical episode or a later episode, since it is also New Year's, or we are doing a New Year's Eve event that night. So then the question is, do we do the Sunday show that afternoon, or do we do it the day before on Saturday? Probably that.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it all out.
Thanks everybody for also wishing me well with regard to the sty on my eye that is making me cry. You were on my lonely mind.
But I'm excited. Anyway, we haven't got to hang out a lot this week, so I'm excited that we've got a good week, you and I, here on the line, because Matt, frankly, I love you, baby.
Love you too, baby. We need to play some walkabout mini golf. I've been playing with a bunch of different people. By the way, if you got VR stuff and you haven't been to try, I'm not advertising, it's not being promoted, but I had a lot of fun playing walkabout mini golf with my friends in VR. Almost as much as Beat Saber, but what do I know?
There's a lot of good
I'm an
stuff.
Old guy. Reading a list of patrons.
If I could buy everyone a Quest 3, I would. Certainly all of our subscribers.
I believe
them.
So fun.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everyone.